He's not. It's Dave.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
They're easy. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Joe, I hear you talking, but I can't hear you. Hold on.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, try now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh. Try
Come
now.
on, Russell. Can you hear me?
Used to this room, you know, it's the vibe of the room.
Came back just in time for me to be sassy.
We can hear you. You can hear us all as well. Love it.
Yep, we're good.
See you presenting.
Oh, we can see me.
Oh, it
Look at it.
sure can.
Look at it looking at me.
So,
Gonna be great. Okay, perfect. We'll go silent for a minute and then we'll start. Let me just screen share.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Then they didn't have a choice. You're right. But that,
Sweet.
like that, they did.
Looks good.
That's how we use that.
Oh, and then they didn't have a choice. Okay, that makes sense.
it's only so much.
Because that was.
Well, I like it. You're young.
No, I.
Your bottle it just
for joining us today. We're gonna start in about 3 to 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and get started. Let me hurry and start sharing my screen. Perfect. Can you all see our slideshow here? A thumbs up or a shout and holler?
Hey, Lily, we can see it.
Perfect, sweet. All right, so welcome to our pre-bidders meeting. We are the Office of Homeless Services within Department of Workforce Services. I'll go ahead and introduce myself and then we'll just do a quick popcorn with the people in the room as they will be all presenting. So my name is Lily. I am a program specialist within the Office of Homeless Services. And I have kind of been helping our program manager over administering these funds.
Perfect. So I'm Russell Goodman. I'll be overseeing these funds from start to finish. So excited for that, also with the Office of Homeless Services.
I'm Amy Lowe, and I am a contract analyst with the Department of Workforce Services. I will be helping put together your grant agreement, if you are awarded the grant agreement. And I'm going to be talking about some of the things about how to apply for the grant, as well as some of the things that go along with it. So happy to be here today.
Perfect. Happy to have you. Okay, so today we're going to specifically be talking about the affordable housing pot of money. So there are three pots of money, so to speak. The first one is affordable housing. The next one is non-congregate shelter, and then the last one is supportive services. The non-congregate shelter is tomorrow afternoon. The supportive services presentation is Friday morning. So if you aren't here for the affordable housing one, feel free to stick around. We're happy to have you. And then on to kind of the agenda, we wanted to talk about some quick housekeeping items before we get started. So with most of our attendees attending virtual, we ask that you either raise your hand virtually. There's an option to do that on the bottom kind of bar, or you can also type them in the chat. We have Meredith Bernick, also a program manager from our office, who is managing the chat. So she will be either answering them or coming up with a list that we can refer to at the end of this presentation. And then secondly, we ask that you please rename yourself in Zoom. There's on the top section, the top right-hand corner of your profile, you have the option to rename yourself. So please rename your profile with your first and last name, as well as your organization, as we are taking attendance for today. And then that brings me to my last kind of housekeeping item, is that this presentation will be recorded and will be accessed on the RFGA website, so you can refer back to it. And then, as you can see, we have lots and lots to cover. We will be accepting questions at any point in time throughout the presentation. However, feel free to kind of make use of the chat function as well. And we will just jump right in.
All right, so this is a special pot of home funding that is different from your traditional home. So if you've used home funding in the past for housing development, this is a completely different program. So it's part of the American Rescue Plan that was passed a couple years ago. We got this money in September of last year. And over the last year, we've kind of read the rules, understood it, done our agreements with HUD, and now we're ready to find projects and award the funding. The official notice that you can refer back to for all the rules related to this funding is HUD Notice CPD 2110. If you Google that, it'll come right up and you can read that. It's quite long, so this training should hopefully give you some snapshots of it, and we'll give you some other tools so you can understand exactly what you're going to be applying for, how these funds can be used in your community. And yeah, hopefully it goes really well, and I'm excited to see all the projects that are going to be coming out of this RFGA. So just to give a breakdown, like Lily said, there's different pots of funding that we're going to be allocating today. We're specifically talking about the development of affordable housing. And we have set aside in our allocation plan 2.9 million for that purpose. That doesn't mean we're stuck to that number no matter what. We can always change it with HUD if we would like. If these applications come in and it's not at the amount that we think it should be, according to this plan, we will adjust. But just to give you a ballpark of how much money we have for the entire state. And we have decided that these funds will be prioritized for communities that haven't already received HOME-ARP funds. So that's Ogden, Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, and Provo. It doesn't mean that you can't be awarded if you have a project in one of those areas, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. It just means that those communities we're going to be looking at a little bit more closely. They're going to have a preference so that we can make sure this funding is going to the areas that need it the most and the areas that don't have access to this type of funding.
All right, so I'm gonna kind of just go over the application overview. And so to start, these are components taken straight from HUD. So HOME-ARP funds may be used to, I'm just reading and you can't see. All right, so HOME-ARP funds may be used to acquire, construct, or rehabilitate rental housing for occupancy by individuals and families that meet one of the qualifying populations. And I will kind of go over what entails a qualifying population in a moment. And then I just wanted to put plug for the fact sheet that we'll be referring to in a minute. This is a really, really great resource. So I suggest that you utilize this. And then we also require kind of that projects provide supportive services to tenants in housing units whose construction was funded by this funding source. And then lastly, we do require that projects receiving funding through this funding source must maintain the affordability for the length of time outlined in the project application and what was approved by the Utah Homeless Council, which I'll refer to as UHC. And then also, as you can see on the bottom there, is that the failure to maintain supportive services or affordability may require repayment of grant funds. Not to be scary or anything, we just want to make sure that that is specified. We're obviously more than happy to work with you, but that is just kind of one of our requirements as part of Department of Workforce Services. And then next, on this next slide, this kind of outlines the population, the qualifying population that I just referred to. So simply put, there's 5 qualifying populations, and they, as you can see listed here, we reference the policy. So you can see like the first one, for example, is associated with 103A of the McKinley Veto Act. So I would definitely refer to those if you need more information. But generally put, it requires that individuals or families are homeless, either at risk of homelessness, fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, dating violence, sexual assault, stalking, or human trafficking. Part of another population where providing supportive services or assistance would prevent a family's homelessness. Or lastly, veterans and families that include a veteran family member that meet one of the 4 criteria above. This is just our quick snapshot of our timeline. So you can see that our letter of intent is to be submitted by December 2nd at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. And Amy will go over a little bit more about that in a moment. And then the application submission deadline is December 19th. So right before the holiday season, if you celebrate Christmas or Hanukkah. And then January 2023 is the anticipated grant award date. And then we anticipate that awards are effective February 1 of 2023. All right, and then for program services, we have that projects must provide appropriate housing support services to those in housing units whose construction was funded by the project. You must provide program services based on the application associated with the program. And then projects must maintain this affordability for the greater of 15 years or the length of time indicated in the initial application. And here we also put the same kind of wording where it's a failure to maintain supportive services as outlined in the agreement can require a repayment of some of those funds. And then as for minimum requirements, we do require that you are within the state of Utah, that the project is within the state of Utah, and that only permanent housing projects are going to be funded with affordable housing HOME-ARP funds. We also require that you serve one of the 5 qualifying populations, as I just outlined. You also must comply with the HOME-ARP investment partnership programs, as Russell mentioned. And then 4th, projects must comply with what we outline in the scope of work, which is attached in the RFGA announcement. And then lastly, not to scare anyone, these tend to be kind of in the weeds a little bit. And I just want to preface that we are here to support you throughout if you do get awarded HOME-ARP affordable housing funds. But these are just some requirements that we do have for all of our HOME-ARP affordable housing grantees. So we have that you participate in the UHC strategic plan, the continuum of care, the LHC, point in time count, housing inventory count, and things like that. And then Russell will take away reporting requirements.
All right. So with most of our grants in our office, we do require quarterly and annual reporting. For this specific funding source, we're going to have you report on the number of clients that you have in the units that we paid for. The income, AMI stands for annual median income, for those for the individuals in those units. And then something that's kind of unique that you probably haven't seen if you've done housing development in the past is we're going to be requiring you to report to us the evictions from the units that are being assisted. And this just helps us keep a really good understanding of how these programs are working, who's being served, how well they're being served. So that's something maybe a little out of the ordinary. And then if you work with our Utah Homeless Management Information System, referred to as HMIS, or if we determine that during the contracting process or once the project gets up and running that you should be putting into that system, we may have some additional reporting that will be required. And like Lily said, HMIS can seem like, it's another database, another thing you have to learn. It's pretty simple. Joseph in our office oversees the staff that administer that, and we're confident you'll be able to learn it if that's what becomes a requirement for you. And then we will also have some different reporting for the nonprofit capacity funding that we'll talk about later in this, that an optional source of funding that's tied into each of these projects for nonprofits and other groups that we'll talk about. So just wanted to point that out, that there will be additional reporting for that. We'll also have you report to us when you have a certificate of occupancy, and then that follows the schedule that you outlined in your application for funding. If we need to make adjustments, we understand that when you're doing construction, it doesn't always go as planned, and sometimes things get delayed. We will just need to make sure we're on the same page with that, that we have it approved ahead of time and that the process is going along as expected. And then you do need to have the property fully occupied by the qualifying population, like Lily listed, within 12 calendar months from the date of that certificate of occupancy. Pretty standard for most projects. Just wanted to point that out, and we will be verifying that through our office. And then you will have to participate in ongoing monitoring. We'll be coming to the site, checking your client's files, making sure you're serving who you should serve, and just keeping an eye on the project, supporting you with it, make sure it's able to maintain affordability and support services. So just to reiterate, this is HOME-ARP funding. This is a federal funding source that is different than HOME and that has its own distinct rules and actually some pretty good flexibility. So make sure you're aware of that, you're familiar with it. Take that HOME traditional funding and kind of put it over there while you look at this one. A grant period will be from February 1st of 2023 to June 30th of 2024. And that's just the standard period. It complies with all the rules that we have to follow and getting the money out into the community within a reasonable amount of time. We'll award funds based on the application, the criteria that's in the application, and the availability of funding. And at the end of your grant term, if you have unused funds, they'll come back into our office for, maybe using it in another source, but it will come back to us. We won't be able to keep those funds after the end of the contract. And then something it's really hard to explain sometimes, but supplanting is a general federal rule that you cannot replace existing programmatic funds with federal funds. That doesn't make sense to you, feel free to ask us. We can hopefully explain it a little bit better, but it just means this is new funding that's going to increase capacity for projects and not necessarily discontinue what you're already doing. And so once again, grant applications will be evaluated on a competitive basis. There is no limit to the number of applications that you may submit, but if you're going to submit more than one application as an agency, you have to do a separate application for every project. If we have questions during the process, we ask that you're available for those questions. And if we need you to present to a number of groups that we coordinate with, like the Utah Homelessness Network, Utah Homeless Council, maybe your local homeless council, we ask that you're available for those presentations upon request. And we reserve the right to reject any and all applications and to withdraw this offer for funding at any time. And this is just illustrating, once again, this is a competitive grant. We're going to be using a competitive process. We're going to have reviewers that are going to look over each and every application and make sure we're funding the strongest and most needed applications according to the scoring criteria. Another thing, if you apply for any funding with the state of Utah, you are subject to a GRAMA request, which essentially means that if someone wanted to see your application, if they wanted to review what you had submitted, they can request the right to do so. So if you have something, you know, that secret sauce, that's something that's very specific and important for your organization not to share, you can fill out the form that's hyperlinked here, and it's also in the RFGA, and request that that information not be shared. It'll be reviewed and approved by the folks in our office that do that. And another thing to consider is we may ask to award a partial grant. So if you ask for a certain amount and we feel like another amount will work, or at the end of our process, we find that there's money that we just need to get allocated according to certain percentages, we may ask that you take partial award, and we'll determine that with the Utah Homelessness Council. And then we will probably, or we may be reaching out to local homeless councils. And it's a group of folks in your area that are addressing homelessness, the Utah Homeless Network and the Utah Homelessness Council during this evaluation period as needed, just to make sure that we understand the projects and we're getting the full picture of what the needs are in your community. And then if you have questions, we have a form in the RFGA, and it's hyperlinked here. We ask that all your questions that are asked outside of this meeting be put through that form. Just helps us keep things organized. And we'll make every question we get public, so you can review, see what others have asked before maybe thinking about asking it yourself. And then on December 13th, or the cutoff December 12th, so by the morning of December 13th, all the questions will be on there, and we'll stop accepting those questions to give time for you guys to finish out your applications. So those due dates, December 12th, make sure you've everything reviewed, applications ready to go, you've asked all your questions.
Thanks, Russell. So yeah, as I mentioned a few slides ago, the fact sheet will be a really important resource for y'all. So I would suggest that you check here first before you get anxious or worried about something, and then check here first as well before you submit a question to the Q&A form. And then I am going to quickly show you what it looks like. So give me just a moment here. Okay. Oh, it did it copy and paste? There we go. Oh, it's down here. I'm not used to it uploading immediately. Okay, so yeah, like I said, this is the fact sheet. It's gonna just basically have a quick overview of the affordable housing HOME-ARP funds. And then it will outline more in depth kind of eligible activities and costs. And then just continuing down, it will have beneficiary requirements, project requirements, and then oversight and management. So kind of what you can expect from us and what we expect from you. So this will be a really helpful tool for you to utilize if you do get awarded these funds. Any questions thus far? No? Okay, well, feel free to pop them in a chat again. And then I will turn it over to Amy to talk about the application process in Adobe Forms.
Thank you, Lily. I'm gonna go ahead and go through basically how you complete your application and what are the different parts to making sure that you get that completed application to us so that we are able to look it over. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about where do you find the application. I'm guessing if you found the link and the time for this meeting, you were able to find the application. But it's going to be on our website, jobs.utah.gov. So let me do this really quickly. And let me get us another, oh, my thing was there before and now it's not. Go here. That didn't help either.
I would just go to the launch meeting Zoom tab.
Okay.
And then just paste it into there. And
So I can't add something up here.
it won't, yeah, just do that one.
Okay. Okay, sorry about that. We had a little snafu. Okay, we're gonna be on jobs.utah.gov. When you go to jobs.utah.gov, up in about, you're gonna find grant opportunities, pretty easy. They're gonna be listed right here. Here is the one that we are looking at today. Okay, what you're gonna see across is you're gonna see the announcement. That's the tab that we're on. That's gonna tell us everything that we need to know. Here is our meeting today. You're gonna also notice a really important link here. This is your letter of intent deadline, which is going to be on December 2nd. And here is the link to the letter of intent. We'll look at that in just a minute. Okay, we've got a tab here for your eligibility requirements. I believe that Lily went over those, but if you need a reminder, they're right there. Here's the actual application link. Okay. If there's anything that we need to update on the RFGA or any of the anything during that application process, we would add it to this addendum tab. As you can see, we don't have anything at this point. And then here is where you're going to find those questions and answers that Russell talked about. There is a link here to submit your question. And then this link, which you'll see, is going to be that questionnaire that you can ask your question here, submit it, and within 24 business hours, we're going to have an answer for you. And it's actually going to be listed on this QA page here, where you're going to be able to see everybody's questions as they come in. So that's going to be really a good tool that they talked about in addition to that fact sheet. Okay, so that's where you're going to find that. I'm going to go back to the application page. That's going to be our #1 priority right now. Right here is the actual RFGA. Okay, so if we look at, there's the whole packet right there. There's everything you need to know in all the information that Russell and Lily talked about in that packet for you to look over. Okay, let me scroll down here really quickly and make you dizzy, but there's the link to a letter of intent. All of those links are in there. There should be the link to the fact sheet, all of those things. I just want to scroll down. Usually we have more than one screen. Okay, there's that there's the fact sheet, but what I want to get down to as I'm making you dizzy, look the other way while I'm doing this, is the, yeah, that's really annoying. I am so sorry. Okay, what I want you to look at is our, oh my gosh. There we go. Sorry. Submission checklist. This is going to be really important. Before you go to submit your application, you want to make sure you have all your ducks in a row. Okay. And then you could check back on your checklist. We just had a meeting today earlier, and we talked about who likes checklists. And most of us said we love checklists. Why? Because you can check mark the box and you know you have all your stuff ready to go. Okay. So this is what it's going to ask you to be able to submit that application. You're going to need your UEI number. What is that? Your unique entity identifier. Because it is federal money, there does need to be that number. If you have any questions about how you get that number, how that number is assigned, we would be certainly happy to help you with that. We're pros about how to get that number. It used to be a DUNS number, now it is a UEI number, and that can be found on sam.gov. We could, and like I said, we'd be certainly happy to help you with that. You're going to need an employer identification number, EIN, and then you're going to need to make sure you have filled out that letter of intent. Okay. You're going to need to complete your grant application cover sheet. I will show you what that looks like and the different things you need to complete to be able to send that to us. The grant application narrative, that's got your questions about your program, about what does your project look like, okay? Business license or articles of incorporation, if they're applicable, if you're a private business, we're going to need to see a business license, 501(c)(3) letter if you're a nonprofit. Your budget narrative. If you will, just let you know up front, and we're going to go over the budget in a minute, but the budget needs to be emailed to us. That's why there is an email address here. And we need to make sure it's emailed so it can stay in the same format. Anybody have used an Adobe application, it tends to put everything into a PDF format, and we want to have that budget stay in the format that it is in when you fill it out. And so when you go to complete the application, it's not going to give you the option to upload the budget. So when you're done with the application, submit that application and then be ready to go ahead and email that budget over to that email address listed. And I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. Okay.
We're also asking for examples of other affordable housing projects completed, if applicable. Like I said, if it's applicable, then it may not be a required document, and we'll look at that. But here's your checklist, verification of site control, award letters, and your local housing homeless council. I knew I was gonna, he just showed it to me and I thought, I gotta remember what that is. Local homeless council. Okay, thank you. Letter of support. Okay, so make sure you've checked this and you're ready to go and you've got all of those things ready to go before you go to submit that application. Okay, you've got to have them ready to upload. Save them on your desktop, save them wherever you need, but have that ready to go so that by Monday, December 19th, by 11:59 p.m., we've got that application. Okay, so let's go back and I'm probably just skipping some slides and just going to I am just going to go ahead. Okay, grant application. What does this look like? Okay, it is a fillable form. As you can see, it's going to ask you your organization information. Pretty easy. There's the information where we ask for that UEI, federal tax ID number, okay? Pretty simple, you should have that ready to go. What's going to be a little bit more difficult is when you get down here to the attachments, okay? Anything on this form that is required is gonna you're gonna see that asterisk, okay? You'll notice that Appendix B grant application narrative, okay? You will have filled that out, have that saved on your desktop or wherever, ready to go. The FFATA, we'll talk about that. That's going to be ready to go. If you'll notice here, a reminder that you're going to email that budget to this email address once you've submitted this application. Okay. Verification of site control. That is a required, as you can see the asterisk, that's going to be something that's required, as well as this local homeless council's letter of support. Okay. If you have more than one document here, so you have more than one letter from a local homeless council, there is only one link here to uplink your documents, okay? So make sure that you do whatever you need to do to combine those documents. If they're a PDF document, combine them in PDF. If it's a Word document, do whatever you need to do, and we can help you if needed to get them onto one document, because there's only one link here for one attachment. Okay, does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Down in section B, you will see that these are additional documents. There's no asterisk here. That means that they're not required. If it's applicable to your situation or to your particular organization, please make sure that you have uploaded those, okay? And then again, a reminder, if you have multiple documents, please make sure they are combined into one document and you will attach here, okay? So you're ready to submit that grant application. You've got all of your required documents saved somewhere. You're going to start at the top. You're going to fill in what's needed. Okay. You're going to go down here. Reminder that it's asked you, is giving you instruction on how to save it. Name of the document. So it would be your grant application narrative for the name of your organization, so that we can identify it. You're going to click on here. You're going to bring up that document. Okay. You're going to attach all your documents. And then a submit button will come up, okay? If the required fields are all completed, you will see the submit button. If it doesn't come up, you have not completed one of the required fields, okay? If you get stuck, you are welcome to contact us and we can walk you through it. But make sure you've got something attached in every field that's required, and that submit button will come up. Once it comes up, you submit it, and we instantly get it. It's timestamped from when you sent it, and then right after that, I would recommend that you quickly send that email at the same time for us to get that budget. That's how you're gonna, yes.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you're worried about whether or not your organization should upload those optional attachments, those are gonna be associated with the question. So you'll see in the narrative, it will be like, do you have experience administering affordable housing projects within the state? If so, please attach examples of affordable housing projects. So then you can see that first one on Amy's screen is that example of those projects. So that's kind of tight.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, the next thing I want to look at really quickly under this application is going to be that grant application narrative. They're gonna go over that in more detail about the questions, but that is, again, that's gonna be a fillable form. You'll complete the, when it comes up. You'll go ahead and complete those answers in here, pretty easy. You know, indicate your project type, you'll select one, organization name, and then you'll go ahead and save that document. That's not an document that you're going to submit. That's going to be a document you save, and then you're going to pull that over when you submit that application on that attachment file. So that's what your grant application narrative looks like. And again, they're going to go in more detail about what those questions are asking. Okay. Let's see what, the other thing that you're going to be asked to submit is something called a FFATA. I know it sounds funny, but I'll tell you what it stands for and why you're submitting it. It's the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act, but basically it is required for any federal funding. And as we know, these are federal funds. It is not required if you're a state agency or a component unit. What is a component unit? Component unit is a state-funded university or school. So your Utah State, your University of Utah, you're not going to have to fill this out because you're a component unit. Obviously, if you're another state agency, if you have any questions about that, we have a list online of component units and we can provide that to you. A couple things I want to be aware of on this FFATA certification, and it's fun to say. Here's what we're asking you to do. Two things that you want to look at. Is 80% or more of your annual gross revenue in U.S. federal contracts, subcontracts, loans, grants, sub-grants, and/or cooperative agreements, and this is not or, it's and 25 million or more in annual gross revenue from the U.S. federal contracts, subcontracts, loans, grants, sub-grants, and/or cooperative agreements. You're going to hit yes or no. If you will notice that no is first. No is first because we see a lot more no's than we do yes. Okay, so if it's no, you're going to hit no. You're going to run down to the bottom and you're going to sign it. And you're going to save it, and then you're going to upload it with your application. Okay. If it is yes, then you're going to complete the rest of it and tell us about your executive compensation and fill out the information that they're asking for. Okay. You're only going to fill out this portion if you have clicked on yes. And again, it's yes if it meets both of these. That's why and is bold. Okay. And you're welcome to let us know if you have any questions about that. But that's what that form is, if that makes sense. Why we're asking you to complete that. Okay. And then they'll go over the budget, but let me just show you really quickly what the budget looks like. It is in an Excel document, and we want to keep it in that form so that we don't lose the format as well as the formulas. So it's going to be really easy, and they're going to walk you right through it on how to fill it out. Okay. Couple more things that I want to talk about is back to this letter of intent. Let me show you what that looks like. Again, it's on the main page or it's inside the RFGA. It's that same standard Google. It's very easy. It's a couple of questions. We're going to ask you your organization name, primary grant. Make sure again that this is completed by that deadline. Easy to get to. I'm trying to think what was the other thing I needed to cover. If I go back to this, I will tell you. I showed you the application. I showed you the reminder of the cover of there's your cover sheet. Also, if you do need this required letter from your homelessness council. I'm going to get it right.
You're golden.
Okay. There is a link here. We provided it, and let me show you just what that looks like, and you'll be able to reach out on this Endless Homeless, and there is some information about, I looked on it. I was able to find it pretty easy, but there should be which one you fall under, and you can reach out to them to be able to get that information. That was our letter of intent we looked at. We talked about the FFATA. And I think the narrative questions are yours.
Yep.
Any questions about how to complete that application? I'm going to take that as no. Okay, thank you.
Fun stuff. Thanks, Amy. So yeah, now we're gonna be talking about the narrative questions. You'll see that again, it's all on that RFGA website. All right, so we have a few sections that you'll have to cover in that narrative question document. The first one is going to be this general project information section. So this is going to include your project type. So we have multifamily, transitional family, and then single room occupancy. And then secondly, you'll need to fill out kind of a general project summary. We have 4 key components that we'd like you to hit on within this question. So we need to know like specific developer and service partnerships you have, how the project would meet the needs of the qualifying populations your project is associated with, how like what your plan is for long-term sustainability of the project, and then lastly, how the project aligns with the goals and objectives of HOME-ARP as outlined in 24 CFR Part 92, and then the HUD notice CPD 2110. So that's kind of a in-depth overview for our review committee to kind of get a gist of what your project is. And so just make sure that you hit on those components and you will be golden. Next in this section is a budget. It's just a single yes, no question. So it will just basically be a reminder on the narrative question page to be like, hey friend, did you upload your budget? This is just a friendly reminder to do that, or excuse me, not upload, but to kind of prompt that email to be sent to that address that Amy listed. And then also within this section, we want to know kind of your contingencies in place for the rising construction costs that we're experiencing right now. Any funding sources that you have secured or you have pending. And then lastly, established partnerships are going to be something that we want to know. And then the next section is going to be your project description. So we want to know your anticipated completion date. And you'll say here in the screenshot that within this question, we have a portion that says, please justify your response. This is me just kind of putting a plug in here that there are a lot of questions that ask you to please justify your response. And so just make sure that you are keying into those as your question or your answer to this question will be scored based off of whether you justify that response. And then next, we are gonna just ask you to estimate your total number of units, the bedroom size breakdown, the percentage dedicated to serving the households outlined in the qualifying population with your project, the units restricted to low-income households, the qualifying populations you will be serving. So there is going to be kind of just a select button for the associated qualifying population that I covered in a little bit earlier. And then lastly, we want you to kind of describe your project innovation and why is your project unique? Why does it meet the needs of kind of what we are seeing in communities across Utah, what we're seeing in your specific community. And then lastly is application information. So this is going to be really regarding your experience. So the first bullet you see is a question regarding your experience and background with serving the qualifying population your project is associated with. The next question is if you have any experience administering home funding. And then lastly, your experience administering federal funding across the board. I just wanted to highlight though, if you don't have experience in any of these areas, you're not going to be docked per se. And I'll walk you through kind of the rubric requirements in a minute here. But this is just a helpful thing for us to know if we do award your funds, just to kind of give some basis to your project. And then the last section for the affordable housing pot of money is environmental considerations. And these are required, so we're not trying to twist your arm, but these are just some questions that is asking just simple yes or no. Has the project construction started? Have you completed environmental reviews? Is it a wetland or floodplain? Like, is the project property on a wetland or floodplain? Does the project have any historic significance? Thank you. Does the project have any historical significance? And then lastly, are there any known environmental hazards associated with the property? And then now we're gonna take a quick break because we know we're talking your ear off. So we will come back at, let's do 10 minutes. So we'll come back at 2:55. Okay, that clock is right. Good. See you at 2:55, friends.
All right, we're gonna power through these last few. All right, so you will see in the application that there is a section for the optional nonprofit capacity fund. So as the name states, this isn't for everybody. It's just for the nonprofit or a community housing development organization called a CHODO. If you don't know what that word means, you are not a CHODO. That's how you know. It's a very specific subset of groups in the state. And some of the funding for home is set aside for these organizations. And that's why we're talking about them. So this is to help your nonprofit run what you're doing. So it's to help you increase capacity. It's to help you operate over the course of developing these projects. And it's going to be in addition to your application. So to be awarded the nonprofit capacity funding, if you're eligible and apply, you must also be awarded the first part of the application. So you have to be awarded for the project to be eligible for this, and you need to apply for this and be awarded it to get it. So they go hand in hand. And like we stated, if you have questions on it, we're here to help. It's a subset of the funding, and it's a pretty interesting one. It does require some additional reporting. So if we're going to fund you, we want to know how many full-time and part-time employees you have, how many trainings and technical assistance you're either attending or providing, and what are the affordable housing projects that your staff are supporting. So pretty simple. And in the application, it's at the bottom, you'll see this optional portion, and it's going to ask you some questions about why do you need this funding? What are you going to do with it? And if you weren't awarded this funding, could you continue to do the project as described? Like, what would be the impacts on your organization? So again, this is unique. It's not something you see in really any other funding sources through our office. So if you are qualified and you would like to apply, please do so. We'd love to see your projects for that.
Great. So now I'll talk about the scope of work, which is attachment B within the RFGA packet. So the first step that we'll cover is responsibilities. So basically, I'm just gonna highlight 4 big things. So first, we do require that our grantee perform all the activities outlined in the application, and the ones that you submitted, pretty like obvious, but we'd list it just to be sure. And then secondly, you must comply with the HOME-ARP rental requirements for the greater of 15 years or the period of affordability outlined in the application. And then we do require that you determine eligibility for all the clients that you serve within the affordable housing HOME-ARP project. And then any of the other responsibilities is outlined in the RFGA packet. If there's any confusion, please upload your question into the Q&A form as we talked about earlier. Next is the reporting. So we have 5 different reporting processes, and we require that you submit documentation to your assigned DWS OHS staff via email according to the schedule below. So we have 4 quarters that we operate on. And so you'll see that we ask you to report on each quarter. So first, second, third, and fourth quarter, and the dates are outlined there. And then lastly, we do require that you report for your annual kind of data. So this data will be pulled at the same time as the fourth quarter report, but it will capture first through fourth quarter data. And then I just wanted to highlight that you must report on the content covered on slide 14, slide 36, and then any additional reporting requirements as described in the RFGA packet. And then the budget, Russell will kind of take that on in a few minutes, but generally put, the grantee shall abide by all of the invoicing and reimbursement requirements as outlined in the scope of work. And within that, you have to adhere to the approved budget that you email to us and that's listed in Appendix C, excuse me. We also require that you submit claims for reimbursement of expenditures online through our web grants, which is a grant kind of management portal that if awarded these funds, your program specialist will get with you to kind of get registered in web grants and kind of get the flow of things there. We also require that any changes to the budget must be approved by our office prior to the expenditure date. And then the last two is regarding kind of awarded funds. So up to 95% of awarded funds must be or may be initially provided as negotiated with OHS upon receipt of proper documentation. And then lastly, the remaining 5% of awarded funds will be provided upon the submission of that complete and final expenditure document, such as like payroll reports, invoices, and other documentation that is applicable to those claims. And then now we're talking about the budget.
All right, we're almost there. So the budget, this is a pretty simple budget template. You'll see the Excel has 4 different tabs. And we did take a lot of this formatting and structure from the Salt Lake City RDA application. So thank you to them for allowing us to steal some of their work. So on the first page, you'll see that it's asking you for general information. I know you've already given us this information, but it makes our lives a lot easier to have it in this format as well, as we're going through, and the allocation committee is reviewing all of the different pieces for the application, asking you for the funding sources, asking you for exactly how your funds are being split out. So this is for the entirety of the project, not just the funds you're applying for. That will give us a number of units and a cost per unit calculation, which is useful when you're evaluating projects. You'll have the timeline at the bottom of this is the first tab on the Excel sheet. The next one is going to get into your operating expenses. It's going to be a detailed breakdown for exactly what it costs to run this project. We are not using this funding to pay for ongoing operation. So it's important for us to see that this is a sustainable project, that it makes sense fiscally, and that it will be able to exist for the full affordability period. The next section of that tab talks about debt servicing. So we'll have you put in any hard debt that you have on the project, so we can see what your debt service is. If you have more than 5 loans, please let us know and we can get you a updated sheet. I haven't seen any that had more than 5 yet, so hopefully it's not that complicated, but if it is, just let us know. And this will list exactly what that debt servicing is so that it can calculate it into the other tabs. The third tab is going to be what is the development budget. So this gets really into detail of how much it will cost to create this project. If it's a brand new construction, if it's an acquisition, if it's a rehabilitation, we want to know exactly how you're going to accomplish that goal and have the project at the end of the day be feasible. And we want to see these detailed costs make sense to be what it actually is going to cost to the best of your knowledge to build the project. And then the last one, something, it's probably not exactly it, but it's often referred to as a pro forma. So this tells us for 15 years, how is this project going to exist? So what are the rents going to be? What's your vacancy expected to be? Can you service your debt? Can you pay for your supportive services? We want to see exactly what this project looks like over those first 15 years to again make sure that it's a viable, fiscally sound project and to really understand exactly how it's going to work. So if you have questions on the budget, one more time, email it and cannot submit it with your application via the web forms. And please return it in this Excel format so that we can utilize it as we need to. Okay, well, we will do scoring.
Great. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this is going to be attached in the RFJ packet. And you can refer to it as attachment C. And so this will be a really helpful resource, as this is what our scoring committee will use to score your narrative question responses. So there may be a few changes to this, but generally everything is set. So I would definitely use this as kind of a resource as you are writing your questions and making sure that that you covered everything. So you can see that there's different scoring kind of criteria. So what equates to a 1 versus a 2 versus a 9 or a 10. So I would definitely can't stress this enough. This is a really, really important tool for you to use while you're writing your answers. So just a little bit more on the scoring rubric. There are 70 points available in the affordable housing application, and then 25 points available in the nonprofit capacity funding application. I do want to just reiterate that the scoring is completely independent. So the score, like the scores that you receive in the affordable housing application are in no way, shape, or form going to be related to the points that you score in the nonprofit capacity funding. If you do have any questions regarding that, feel free to reach out to us via the Q&A form. But again, just stressing they are not associated and you won't be docked based off of your other application submission. And then lastly, if you are unable to receive a letter of support from your local homeless council, you can still receive partial points, so don't let that deter you in your application. And then lastly, we'll turn it over for the exciting terms and conditions.
Something I just thought of actually, since Lily said if you are not able to get a letter from the local homeless council, you still have to attach something in that. So you could attach something that indicated you weren't able to get a letter, if that makes sense, correct?
Yeah,
So, yeah.
just an explanation.
Just an
why.
explanation.
Reason for that is there's some LHCs that may not have the capacity to provide one at this current time. So if you have an explanation of that, who else you reached out to when you reached out to them, please, since it is a required document, please still upload it. And then we'll consider that when we're looking at the application. So thank you.
Yeah, just about that, because that's gonna be difficult. Okay, what I'm gonna talk about is if you are awarded the grant, it comes with your agreements and terms and conditions, 11 pages of terms and conditions. I'm not gonna go over everything on 11 pages. I'm gonna go over some things to be that you need to be thinking about that are important. Everything's important, and you're going to be responsible for everything that is in those terms and conditions. But here's some things I want to go over up front so that you're made aware of them. First thing I want to bring to your attention is conflict of interest. You as the grantee need to make sure that you certify that none of your owners, directors, officers, employees are also employees of DWS or the state of Utah. That obviously is a conflict of interest, and you will not hire or subcontract with any person having such a conflict of interest. Okay, if this arises, you make sure that you will notify us, DWS, immediately upon learning of this conflict, and then we can help you take whatever immediate action is needed to remedy that. Okay. Also, that you need to certify or realize that you could make sure that none of your owners, directors, officers, or employees working under this agreement are relatives of an employee of DWS. What is a relative? A relative is defined as a spouse, child, stepchild, parent, sibling, aunt, uncle, niece, nephew, first cousin, mother-in-law, father-in-law, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, grandparent, or grandchild. I obviously read that really quickly, but it's all right there to give you an idea of what that relative is. And finally, a grantee shall not use grant funds to make any payments to an organization which has in common with the grantee either owners or partners who directly or indirectly own 10% or more of the voting interest of the organization, directors, officers, or others with authority to establish policies and make decisions. That was a mouthful. Basically, be aware of conflicts of interest. Make sure anybody working under the grant is not related to DWS or anyone that is working at the state. So be aware of those conflicts of interest. If it comes up, please let us know. We certainly want to help you work through that. We are here to help you. Okay, indemnity. What does that mean? Basically, you are responsible and liable for anything that happens under that grant and during that time frame, that grant time frame. And basically, you are holding DWS not liable for anything that happens. That's basically what indemnity tells us. You're responsible for whatever happens under that grant. Okay. Amendments. We talked about this a little bit. Lily talked about it. If there are any changes that need to be made to your grant agreement, those have to be in writing and signed by DWS and you, the organization. Okay, so you want to make any changes, we need to talk about it, and it needs to be signed and approved by both parties. Okay, and it's usually, again, in the form of an amendment. So make sure that any changes are in writing. Okay, also make sure that any of the clients, as they were referred to, that you are providing services to. You are not charging them any services or any fees for those services. That includes any electronic payment fees of any client. Okay, so make sure that any of the services that you are providing, there's not a fee attached. Okay, no human subject research. I know that kind of sounds like you think of like a hamster on a wheel or something. What does that mean? Grantee should not conduct non-exempt human subject research. We list the code there, involving any employees of DWS or individuals receiving services, okay? Any program reporting and evaluations that we're asking for are not considered human subject research. Grantee responsibility. We've talked a lot about kind of your responsibilities and things that they're asking for in this grant. Basically, we're just reminding you that you are responsible for what is in what we call a scope of work. You'll get that on in your grant agreement, but it's basically outlining some of those things that Lily and Russell talked about. But just a reminder, you are going to be responsible for that information or those expectations in that, okay? So be aware that we're looking for compliance and we're expecting compliance. That sounds a little scary. Again, we're here to help you to meet that compliance, okay? If you do need to look at a subcontractor, or excuse me, sub-grantee, because you're grantees, you need to make sure that you're still responsible for meeting those grantee responsibilities. So whatever you've subcontracted out or sub-grant to a sub-grantee, you're still responsible. So whatever you need to do to make sure they're following up or meeting those requirements, but ultimately it's still your responsibility. Okay. Monitoring. We talked about quite a little bit about monitoring. Russell talked about it. There will be monitoring for the entire duration of the grant agreement. Okay, that means that we might come to your business, we might ask for your finances. It may be a desk audit and an outside visits. You'll know up front what that monitoring looks like, and we're obviously going to do it during normal business hours. You're not going to call in the middle of the night. Why are we monitoring? Well, we want to make sure that you're successful. We want to make sure that the clients that you're serving are getting getting those services, those products, those things that we're expecting. Okay, we're here to help you. That's why also we monitor to make sure that if there is something that you're not meeting, that we can help problem solve, that we can help those things. It's not a punitive thing. It's an all-around thing to make sure we're helping you meet those requirements. Okay, so just be aware there will be monitoring. And again, Russell talked about what that monitoring looks like and what those things that were expected of you as with affordability and supportive services and things. So again, monitoring is going to be a piece of this. That being said, there are some reasons for agreement termination. That kind of sounds a little punitive or harsh, but there are going to be some reasons. There's termination for cause, and that may mean something. Maybe you weren't able to meet your outcomes or some different things. If it does come to a termination for cause, you will be notified. You will be given 10 days written notice. We will give you an opportunity to rectify whatever situation has caused the termination. You know, to be able to see if we can look at termination as the last resort. Immediate termination does sometimes happen, and that's if any of the, maybe clients or people that you're providing services to are in maybe immediate danger. If there's any fraud, something like that, then DWS may have the right for immediate termination. No cause termination, maybe you come up with other funding, or there's other reasons that maybe you don't need the grant anymore. And we just ask for 30 days written notice from you about that. And then sometimes legislature says we don't have any more money, or the money ran out, or different things, and then we may have to terminate the contract that way. That being said, if there are, we will give you notice, and if there are pending reimbursements, those would certainly be honored. Suspension of work is similar to termination, I guess similar. If something happens and there's a compliance issue where we're looking at something, or there's an audit or something, we may suspend work until whatever that issue is rectified. And then then we would let you know in writing that you would be able to reinstate your, what's the word I'm looking, business or your actions back under the grant, okay? Agreement renewal is at the sole discretion of DWS. This is not a renewable grant. It is a 2-year competitive grant with no renewals for this one, okay? But sometimes there are grants that are renewable, and that is at the sole discretion of DWS. We do ask that you are in compliance with generally applicable state and federal laws. What does that mean? Well, it means that you are following equal opportunity law, labor laws, Fair Labor Standards Act. You've got workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, those type of things to make sure that, and they're listed all here individually, but make sure that you are, again, following those basic laws or those federal and state statutes that businesses and nonprofits are required to follow, including having those posters in your business, things like that. And if you have any questions about any of those notices or things that are required, I can certainly help you make sure you've got those. But again, make sure you're following those generally applicable state and federal laws. If for some reason you end up working on a state premises, I don't know that this may happen with this grant, but just to let you know that any of your employees or people working with the grant that may be working on site in a state building need to abide by all the rules that a regular state employee would be in the right place, including the drug-free substance abuse policy. So drug-free standard workplace, okay? Also, if you are awarded the grant and you have a job that comes open, it does need to be listed with Workforce Services jobs.utah.gov. It's an easy process. We can help you with that. So again, any employment opportunities that come open during that grant period need to be listed. Code of conduct. There is a code of conduct form as well as a background check form. If you are going to be working with any clients that are underage or a vulnerable population, which may be in this case with establishing eligibility, we will include a code of conduct form with your grant paperwork, as well as we have an additional background check policy. If you don't have a background check policy in place, then we will outline some different things to make sure that we've got a background check. You've got some background check going if you've got your employees working with those populations. And then we ask that those be made available for us in a file or something so that we can see that those are being processed and available. And then grievance procedure. Make sure that you have an established grievance procedure for those that are being served by this grant. If they have an issue with the eligibility, the way eligibility was determined, or with the way it's being operated, that they can come to you with the grievance. And then any of those grievances will be forwarded to DWS. Excuse me, the contract owner will let us know and let us know how that was taken care of or disposed. And if needed, it could be forwarded to us. So make sure you've got that grievance procedure in place. And then any of the records, if you are doing eligibility or any of these other things, you need to make sure that those client records are protected. If there is a breach, a leak of information, you need to let us know immediately so we can see what we need to do to get that under control. You are responsible for those records and for that breach, and it is your duty of confidentiality, especially if you've got any of that personal identifiable information. So make sure you're aware of the requirements there with client information. We're very close to being done. Okay, records administration. Any records that you accrue during the grant time of the grant need to be kept for 6 years. So 6 years. I know that seems like a long time. 6 years. Or if during that time something happens, an audit happens and it goes past the 6 years and the audit finishes, whichever is longer, you need to make sure you have those records and that they're available if someone from DWS, an auditor, state audit, somebody needs to view those. Obviously, if they want access to those, they'll make sure they have an appointment, or come during normal business hours. But what's the takeaway? 6 years. Required insurance. Grantees are required at all times during the term of the agreement without interruption to carry and maintain a valid insurance coverage. What does that mean? It means non-government entities okay, need to provide us with a certificate of insurance showing up-to-date coverage within 30 days of agreement award. Okay, so you know you're gonna get awarded the grant, and we send you the information. You have 30 days to get us the insurance certificate that meets these standards. Commercial general liability from an insurance company authorized to do business in the state of Utah. Okay, with no less, the insurance policy will be no less than $1 million per person per occurrence and $3 million aggregate per occurrence. Geez, that was a hard word. Okay. Also, any non-government agency must add the state of Utah DWS as an additional insured with notice of cancellation. Okay, you also need to have commercial automobile liability license insurance with the $1 million per occurrence if you're going to be using automobiles in any type of capacity under the grant. Okay, if you're employing any other things under the grant, social worker, mental health therapists, doctors, you need to look at also adding that insurance to cover that type of professionals as well with the $1 million per occurrence. And then any other insurance that is appropriate for the type of business that you own or organization that you own, including, excuse me, that up-to-date workers' compensation insurance for all employees and subcontractors. Okay, so that's a lot of information about insurance information, and we could obviously answer any other additional questions, but be aware of the insurance requirements. Again, we're asking that you're also adhering to any financial reporting audit requirements that are in line with state auditing and state financial reporting. Billing and payments, Lily Russell talked about what billing looks like. But we do ask that you're submitting your billing, your reimbursements online, but we ask that they are received for services for the month of June, no later than July 15th. That's our fiscal year end, and it gets pretty hairy due to the fiscal year end, and billing submitted after this date may not be paid. Okay, payment withholding, there may be some payment withholding for some reasons. We talked about making sure that any of the budget updates are made. You've got, excuse me, permission and signed off before you spend something else on your budget. Maybe you submit something and you didn't have it approved, the payment may be withheld. So there are some reasons payment is withheld. Okay. Administrative expenses. DWS will reimburse administrative expenses as long as it is allowed in the budget terms and of the agreement. Okay. If you do have a federally approved negotiated indirect cost rate, a NICRA, you need to make sure that you also include a copy of your approval letter and that information about the base rate. So we can make sure that we have all that information correct on your agreement. Okay, again, changes in budget. Make sure that if there is a change in budget, you follow the guidelines between if you can change between category 1 and 2, it should be explained on your budget. Also, again, I say it 15 times, but it happens a lot. Make sure if you think there are going to be changes in your budget that you talk to your contract owner, your program specialist, make sure those are approved. That was it. I tried to get through it as quickly as possible. There are, again, many other, lots of information on the terms and conditions, and we ask that you look them all over, but those are going to be, we feel like the most important ones to be aware of going into this. And I'm going to turn the time back over to Lily. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns that is currently in our virtual room? Did we receive any via the chat, Joseph?
No, we've had no questions via the Q&A or the chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then
We just got one, right? As I said, we didn't have any. So the question is, for clarity, there's only $2.9 million available.
That's what we've allocated. The full fund is 12.9 million. So there's always the possibility that we could move funding from another category if we felt like this was the better place for it. We did our public comment period, public agrees. But at this point, yeah, 2.9 million dedicated to the affordable housing. And we hope you're looking at the non-congregate shelter and the supportive services as well. Those have their own allocations.
And then you can also get additional funding separate from those 2.9. If you are a nonprofit entity through that nonprofit funding. Thanks for your question. Any other questions?
2.9 is a lot, I promise. Doesn't sound like it, but it is.
Perfect. Well, again, if you think of any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A form that we have on listed on the RFGA website. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your Tuesday afternoon to join us. Or if you're listening to this recording, taking time out of your day, just in general. We have our contact information here for the program manager, Russell Goodman, and then we have our contract analysts contact information as well, Amy Lowe and then Chloe Norvell. But without further ado, we'll adjourn if nobody has any riveting things to say. Perfect. Well, thanks again for joining. We'll talk to you later.